This will be a two-part video demonstrating Unifi access point setup with the Radius. In this part 1, we'll go through installing the Unifi controller on Windows 11, adopt a Unifi access point, create a Wi-Fi network, and connect a wireless client for testing. These are the VMs that we'll be using for this setup: Sophos Firewall, Windows 11-1, and Server 2022. As to how I built these VMs in Proxmox, refer to my previous videos posted in the description. Let's jump to the network topology here. All my Proxmox VMs are housed on this Beelink MiniPC hardware. These devices inside this dotted square box are the VMs, virtual switches, and internal connections on Proxmox. While the right side section here are the external devices connected to Proxmox. The web management IP assigned to this Proxmox box is 192.168.8.250. This Beelink MiniPC has only one built-in Ethernet port and is auto-named ENP1S0 in Proxmox. From this physical ENP1S0 port, it is physically cabled to the router with gateway 192.168.8.1. This router is running DHCP on its LAN with network address of 192.168.8.0/24. I have a management PC on the same 192.168.8.x subnet range for accessing Proxmox web management IP. From this router, I have a connection going to the Linksys Layer 2 switch on port 6 with the management IP of 192.168.8.230, which will be managed by the same management PC. Going back to this ENP1S0 here, there is a virtual connection to an auto-created virtual switch named VMBR0. I've explained this from my previous videos already regarding ENP1S0 and virtual switch VMBR0. If you are new, refer to the video links in the description. In the Sophos Firewall VM, network adapter NAT1 representing the internet-facing interface or WAN interface is linked to VMBR0. I've configured a static IP of 192.168.8.220 on this WAN interface within the range of the router LAN DHCP. Note this is just a simulated WAN as we are not using a real public IP addresses in here. Network adapter NAT0 of this Sophos Firewall VM is assigned for LAN, and we have linked this to a virtual switch VMBR1. NAT0 LAN interface has gateway IP of 10.1.1.1. Network address is on 10.1.1.0/24 with DHCP enabled on this as well. I have a second physical Ethernet port and is auto-named as ENX00 something and is linked to virtual switch VMBR1. Where did this ENX00 Ethernet port came from? I have connected 3 of these USB to Ethernet adapter, and this is one of the physical port. I have explained this as well in my previous video about connecting to a physical switch, wherein I introduced this USB to Ethernet adapter. It is posted in the description. From this ENX00 port, I have a physical wired connection to the Linksys switch going to port 1. And port 2 from the switch, I have a physical wired connection as well going to Unifi access point UAP-AC-Lite model. This Unifi AP will obtain an IP of 10.1.1. something from the Sophos Firewall LAN DHCP. I have a Windows 11-1 VM which will be used to run the Unifi controller. NAT0 of this Windows 11 VM is linked to virtual switch VMBR1. This Windows 11 VM will obtain an IP address of 10.1.1.x from Sophos Firewall LAN DHCP, and both Unifi controller and Unifi AP will be on the same subnet. We'll create an SSID named Unifi and connect a wireless client device for testing. Here in Proxmox, I have already started the 2 VMs, Sophos FW and Windows 11-1. In hardware section of the Sophos FWVM, we can see NAT0 is linked to VMBR1, while NAT1 is linked to VMBR0. I have a third adapter NAT2 that is linked to VMBR4, and we'll be using this later. We'll just use the two adapters for now. In the diagram, NAT0 connects to VMBR1 for LAN, and NAT1 connects to VMBR0 for the WAN. I'm accessing Sophos Firewall Web Management on 192.168.8.220, which is the IP assigned statically to the WAN or NAT1 interface. In Network Interfaces section, port A is equivalent to NAT0, which has a static IP of 10.1.1.1 for the LAN. While port B equivalent to NAT1, which has a static IP assigned of 192.168.8.220 for the WAN. Going now to Windows 11-1 VM hardware settings, NAT0 adapter is linked to VMBR1. Now for VMBR1 and VMBR0 connection to the physical port, where in Proxmox can we find the settings for this? In Proxmox, we'll go to Beelink node, under System select Network. We can see VMBR0 is associated to ENP1S0 representing the WAN, while VMBR1 is associated to ENX00 ending in 2B9 representing the LAN. Check out my previous video where I explained this in detail on how to create virtual switches and associating it to a physical port. We'll jump to Windows 11-1 VM's console and let us verify the IP address. I'll pull up network connection settings via the ncpa.cpl shortcut command. Double click on this Ethernet 2 and click Details. This VM has a DHCP IP of 10.1.1.100 with default gateway of 10.1.1.1, which is the Sophos Firewall LAN IP. We can verify the DHCP leased IP as well from Sophos Firewall Web Management. Go to Network and select DHCP. DHCP for LAN 10.1.1.1 is enabled with pool starting at 10.1.1.100 and ends at 10.1.1.200. Under IPv4 lease, 10.1.1.100 is the first IP in the DHCP pool that is leased to the client MAC address ending in 4996, which is indeed the same in this Windows 11-1 VM. Let us also check if we can browse the internet. I'll open Edge browser and type google.com site. Site is accessible. Back in Sophos Firewall Web Management, under Rules and Policies, I have a firewall rule in place already in here to allow traffic initiating from LAN going to anything in the WAN, and action is accept. I have a dedicated video for Sophos Firewall setup. Feel free to watch that as well. Let us proceed downloading the Unifi Controller on Windows 11-1 VM. I'll just type in here the keywords Unifi Controller download to search for the site. Click on this first search result. With Control plus F command, I'll search for the word Windows inside this page. We'll go for the 8.1.127, which is the current latest version, then click download. Run the Unifi installer and click install. The Unifi network server or controller has started. Click Manage Server in browser. This will redirect to the browser to set up Unifi Controller. Name the server. Select the country or region. Check the box to agree to EULA terms. Then proceed to next. I don't have a UI account, so I'll click on Create a UI account. Fill out this form to register for a UI account. An email has been sent and we just need to click the link in that email to complete the registration. Here's the email that I received, and all we need to do here is to click this verify your email address button. Let's go back to the Unifi controller setup and enter the email address that we just registered and password. Click sign in. We are in the main Unifi controller dashboard. Self-hosted meaning we are running the server controller hosted in this local machine. The server IP address is 10.1.1.100, which is also the Windows 11 VM's IP address. There's not much info in here since we don't have a Unifi access point being managed yet from this Unifi controller. The next step is to adopt this UAP AC Lite access point into the Unifi controller. I just powered on the access point. Let us wait for a couple of seconds for the AP to boot up, and we should be able to adopt it into the controller. Back to the Unifi controller web management, click on this Unifi devices icon. So far no Unifi devices have been adopted yet, and it says in here ensure it's powered on, which we did, and connected to the network. Let us verify whether the access point has acquired an IP address or not from the Sophos Firewall LAN DHCP. Go to Network and select DHCP. Under IPv4 lease, only one IP has been listed out, that is assigned to the Windows 11 VM. After a couple of seconds, we have now a new entry that is 10.1.1.101 leased out to the MAC address ending in B343, which is the MAC address of the Unifi access point. Going back to the Unifi controller, let us click the system log icon. We have an event entry saying UAP AC Lite is ready for adoption. Click the link to adopt it. We can see the MAC address of the UAP AC Lite ending in B3F3, which is the same MAC in Sophos Firewall DHCP lease. Click Adopt Device. We have a pop-up message saying to add a Wi-Fi network to complete the access point setup, and we'll be doing this next. In the main dashboard, I don't see the access point in here yet. In the Unifi Devices section, we can see an orange dot and the status is saying getting ready. After a few seconds, we now have a green dot and the status is up to date. Back in the dashboard, we have UAPAC light as the active access point now. Let us proceed creating an SSID or Wi-Fi network by going to Settings. Click on Wi-Fi. I'll name the SSID as Unifi. Put a password for it. I'll click Manual for the advanced settings. Wi-Fi band is set to 2.4 and 5 GHz. Leave band steering on. I'll leave everything in here for now as default. Default security protocol selected is WPA2. Click Add Wi-Fi Network. Take note the configuration will be pushed to the AP. If we go to the Unifi Devices, we have an orange dot in here and the status says getting ready. So it looks like it's still pushing the configuration. Let us wait for this to turn to a green dot and then we'll connect a wireless client to test. Now we have a green dot and the status is up to date. The access point is broadcasting the SSID or the Wi-Fi network name Unifi and ready to accept a Wi-Fi connection. I'd be connecting my Android phone for this test. We can see the Unifi network is in here as the available network. Select Unifi and enter the password. Now it's connected. If we go to Wi-Fi details, we can see the MAC address ending in 8FF9 and assigned IP address is 10.1.1.102. Let us verify this in the DHCP lease at the Sophos Firewall. It's indeed in the IP lease and MAC address matches as well of the Android phone. Back in the Unifi dashboard, we have one client that shows up in here, and let us click this icon. We can see the details of the client connection. The name of the connected client is an Android vendor named Motorola. The connection is associated to UAPAC Lite on Wi-Fi network named Unifi. Experience is excellent, meaning the client is getting good wireless signal. This AP is a 2x2 MIMO Wi-Fi 5 technology. The channel connection is on 5 gig and the IP address is 10.1.1.102. We can also see the download and upload usage. Let us trace the traffic initiating from the wireless client Android phone on this diagram. Android phone connects to the Unifi SSID and passes the traffic to the access point. Ingress into port 2 at the switch and egress on port 1, then ingress to this ENX physical port passes to VMBR1 and ingress to net 0 or LAN port. The Sophos Firewall examines the traffic and allow it to pass going to WAN interface net 1 and passes through VMBR0 and exit at the ENP1 S0, passing through the router and then goes to the internet.